Dr. Alex Reed pressed her face against the small window of the transport shuttle and watched as Nova Station grew larger before her eyes. She had seen pictures of the massive research facility, but nothing had prepared her for the real thing. The station looked like a giant metal flower floating in space, with dozens of arms stretching out in all directions. Each arm was big enough to hold a small city. "First time at an interstellar conference?" asked the pilot, a friendly creature with blue skin and 4 arms. Alex had learned his species was called the Blanti, and they were known for being excellent pilots. "Yes," Alex replied, trying to keep the nervous excitement out of her voice. "I still can't believe I'm here." The pilot made a sound that Alex had learned was Blanti laughter. "You humans are always so amazed by everything. It's refreshing. Most species act like they've seen it all before." Alex smiled. She supposed that from the perspective of beings who had been traveling between stars for thousands of years, human wonder must seem childish. But she couldn't help it. 3 months ago, she had been teaching biology at a small university on Earth. Now she was about to attend the most important scientific conference in the galaxy. The shuttle docked with a soft thud, and Alex gathered her small bag. Inside were her research notes, her presentation materials, and a few photos from Earth. She had no idea if any of it would be useful, but it was all she had. The docking bay was enormous and filled with creatures Alex had never seen before. There were tall, thin beings that looked like walking trees, short, round creatures covered in colorful fur, things that might have been made of living crystal, and dozens of other species that defied description. Alex followed the signs to the registration area, written in over 100 different languages. Somehow the translation device in her ear managed to make sense of all the chatter around her. She heard conversations about quantum biology, dimensional physics, and evolutionary theory that was so advanced it made her head spin. At the registration desk, a polite robot handed her a conference badge and a room assignment. "Welcome, Dr. Reed," it said in perfect English. "You are assigned to the biological sciences track. Your first session begins in 2 hours." Alex made her way through the corridors, which were wide enough for beings much larger than humans. She passed by conference rooms where heated discussions were already taking place. Through one open door, she saw a presentation about carnivorous plants that had evolved to hunt flying creatures. Through another, she glimpsed a debate about whether silicon-based life forms could be considered truly alive. Her room was small, but comfortable, with a bed that adjusted to her human proportions and a window that looked out at the stars. Alex unpacked her few belongings and reviewed her notes. She was here to present her research on Earth's ecosystem dynamics, but compared to what she had already seen, her work seemed embarrassingly simple. A soft chime indicated that the first session was about to begin. Alex made her way to conference room 7, where about 30 beings had gathered. The room was designed to accommodate different types of creatures, with some seats near the floor for small species and others elevated for taller ones. The session moderator was Professor Quilnix, a reptilian being from the Scalian Republic. He had green-brown scales and intelligent yellow eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. "Welcome, colleagues," he said, his voice carrying clearly through the room's speakers. "Today we begin our discussion on comparative biology across different worlds." The first presenter was Dr. Venthak, from the water world of Aqueous 9. She showed images of her planet's deep-sea ecosystems, where creatures survived in crushing depths and complete darkness. Some of her examples fed on chemical energy from underwater volcanoes. Others had evolved to produce their own light in patterns so complex they could be considered a form of language. Alex watched in fascination as presenter after presenter showed off the wonders of their worlds. There were flying creatures from high-gravity planets that had developed bones stronger than steel, underground species that had learned to navigate by sensing magnetic fields, hive minds that could solve mathematical problems no individual creature could understand. Each presentation was more impressive than the last. The beings in the room asked detailed questions and made observations that showed depths of knowledge Alex could barely comprehend. She began to feel smaller and smaller in her chair. During a break, she found herself standing near a group of delegates who were discussing their homeworld's most dangerous creatures. A tall, thin being with gray skin was describing something called a void, stalker that could survive in the vacuum of space and hunted by tracking the heat signatures of spacecraft. "My world has the thunder beasts," said another delegate, this one covered in thick, dark fur. They're larger than your human vehicles and can generate electrical discharges powerful enough to disable our technology. A third being, with skin that seemed to shift colors as it spoke, added, "The phase hunters on my planet can move between dimensions. They're nearly impossible to defend against because they can attack from angles that don't exist in normal space." Alex listened quietly, fascinated but also intimidated. Earth had dangerous animals, certainly, but nothing that seemed as exotic or terrifying as what these beings were describing. Professor Quilnix announced that the next day would feature a special session on apex predators. Each delegation will have the opportunity to present their homeworld's most dominant predatory species, he explained. This will help us understand how different evolutionary pressures shape the development of hunting behaviors and ecological dominance. Alex felt a flutter of nervousness in her stomach. She had brought some materials about Earth's predators, but nothing fancy. No holographic displays or detailed behavioral analyses, just some basic information about lions, sharks, and bears. As the day's sessions ended, Alex returned to her room and looked through her materials again. She had photos of great white sharks and Siberian tigers, some basic statistics about hunting success rates and territorial ranges. It all seemed so simple compared to void stalkers and phase hunters. She fell asleep wondering if she would embarrass herself and all of humanity the next day. She had no idea that her simple presentation was about to change everything. The galaxy thought it knew about apex predators. The main conference hall buzzed with excited chatter as beings from across the galaxy filed into their seats. Alex clutched her simple datapad and tried not to feel overwhelmed by the elaborate equipment other delegates were setting up. Some had holographic projectors the size of small buildings. Others had brought what looked like entire computer systems. Professor Quilnix stepped up to the central podium, his scales catching the light from the room's artificial suns. "Esteemed colleagues," his voice boomed across the vast space. "Today we explore one of biology's most fascinating concepts, the apex predator. Each world has produced creatures that sit at the top of their food chains. And today we will see how different evolutionary paths have created nature's ultimate hunters." The first presenter was Delegate Sharptooth from the harsh world of Kalos 7. He was a massive being, easily 3 times Alex's height, with thick gray skin and tusks that jutted from his lower jaw. When he activated his holographic display, the entire hall gasped. The creature that appeared before them was a nightmare made real. It stood on 4 powerful legs, each ending in claws that could slice through metal. Its head was long and narrow, filled with teeth designed for tearing flesh. But what made it truly terrifying was its intelligence. The hologram showed a pack of these beasts working together, using complex strategies to corner their prey. "The Kalos Deathstalker," Sharptooth announced proudly. "They hunt in packs of 20 to 30 individuals. Each pack has a territory spanning thousands of square kilometers. They can run at speeds of 200 kilometers per hour and have never failed to bring down their chosen prey. Their bite force can crush the bones of creatures twice their size." The hologram showed the Deathstalkers in action. They moved with terrifying coordination, some members of the pack driving prey toward others who waited in ambush. Their hunt was like watching a perfectly executed military operation. "Most impressive," Professor Quilnix noted. "How do they communicate during hunts?" "Through subsonic calls that can travel for dozens of kilometers," Sharptooth replied. "They can coordinate attacks across vast distances. No creature on Kalos 7 is safe from them." The audience murmured appreciatively. Several beings took notes on advanced data systems that floated in the air beside them. The second presenter was Ambassador Venomstrike, from the toxic world of Zelen 3. Her species looked like walking plants, with green skin and leaves growing from their arms and head. When her holographic display activated, it showed a swamp world shrouded in poisonous mists. "I present the Acid Spitter," she announced. The creature that appeared was unlike anything Alex had ever imagined. It looked like a cross between a giant spider and a jellyfish, with a translucent body that showed its internal organs. Most disturbing were the sacs of acid that glowed green inside its body. The acid spitter can project concentrated acid over distances of 50 meters with perfect accuracy, Venomstrike explained. The acid dissolves organic matter instantly and can eat through most metals within minutes. But their true terror lies in their patience. The hologram showed an acid spitter waiting motionless in a swamp for days, looking like nothing more than a strange rock. When prey finally approached, it struck with lightning speed, coating its victim in acid that began dissolving them immediately. They are also highly intelligent. Venomstrike continued. They have been observed using tools, setting traps, and even cultivating certain plants to attract specific types of prey. Nothing that enters their territory leaves alive. The third presentation came from Representative Razorclaw of the Ice World Frost 9. He was covered in thick white fur and spoke through a breathing apparatus that helped him survive in the warmer station environment. Behold the frost giant bear, he announced, and the hologram that appeared dwarfed even the massive Deathstalkers from the previous presentation. The creature was the size of a small building, with fur so thick it looked like armor. Its claws were longer than Alex was tall, and its teeth could have been used as swords. But most impressive was its hide, which the hologram showed deflecting energy weapons without taking any damage. These magnificent beasts fear nothing, Razorclaw said with obvious pride. They have no natural predators and have never been successfully hunted. Their hide is impervious to most forms of attack, and their strength is beyond measure. A single frost giant bear can destroy entire settlements if angered. The hologram showed one of these creatures casually knocking over structures that looked like they were built from advanced metal alloys. When energy weapons were fired at it, the beam simply bounced off its fur like light reflecting off a mirror. They are also remarkably intelligent, Razorclaw added. They have been observed using primitive tools and can learn to operate simple machinery. Some have even learned to avoid our settlements not out of fear, but because they find our presence irritating. The presentations continued throughout the morning. Each one was more elaborate and terrifying than the last. There were creatures that could phase through solid matter, beings that could manipulate gravity, and hunters that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Alex watched it all with growing amazement and dread. Every creature presented could easily destroy any predator from Earth without breaking a sweat. The Deathstalkers could outrun and outfight any Earth animal. The Acid Spitters had weapons that no Earth creature could match. The frost giant bears were basically invincible. As each presentation ended, delegates turned to look at Alex with expressions she was learning to read as curiosity mixed with barely concealed amusement. She could almost hear them thinking, what could the primitive humans possibly have to offer? During the lunch break, Alex overheard conversations that made her heart sink. Some delegates were making jokes about Earth's tiny predators. Others were speculating that humans might not even have apex predators, given how weak and soft they appeared. Perhaps their apex predator is something like a large insect, one delegate suggested, causing laughter from the group around him. Or maybe they're herbivores, another added. That would explain why they seem so gentle. Alex returned to her room during the break and stared at her simple presentation materials. She had pictures of great white sharks, Siberian tigers, and grizzly bears. Compared to void stalkers and acid-spitting nightmare creatures, they looked like pets. She was tempted to make up an excuse and skip her presentation entirely. But something inside her rebelled at the thought. These beings might have bigger, stronger, more exotic predators, but that didn't mean Earth had nothing to offer. Alex spent the remaining break time reorganizing her presentation. She couldn't compete with holographic displays and advanced statistics, but she could at least present Earth's predators with the respect they deserved. When the afternoon session began, Professor Quilnix called for the final presentations. We have heard from many worlds today, he announced. Now let us hear from our newest galactic neighbors. Dr. Reed, please present Earth's apex predator. Alex walked to the podium on shaking legs. The entire hall fell silent. Hundreds of alien eyes focused on her. She activated her simple display system and took a deep breath. What happened next would change everything the galaxy thought it knew about Earth and humanity. Alex stood at the podium looking out at hundreds of expectant alien faces. Some delegates leaned forward with curiosity, while others sat back with expressions that suggested they were expecting to be entertained rather than educated. She could feel her heart beating so hard she was sure everyone in the room could hear it. Thank you, Professor Quilnix, she began, her voice steadier than she felt. I'm honored to present Earth's apex predator to this distinguished assembly. She touched her simple control pad, and her display screen flickered to life. But instead of showing a great white shark or a Siberian tiger, the image that appeared was something completely unexpected. A human being. The image showed a perfectly ordinary person, a woman in casual clothes standing in what looked like a city park. She was smiling and holding what appeared to be a small animal, possibly a cat. A confused murmur rippled through the audience. Several delegates looked at their translation devices, obviously wondering if something had gone wrong. Professor Quilnix tilted his head, his reptilian features showing puzzlement. "Dr. Reed," he said politely, "I believe there may be a technical error with your presentation system. The image appears to show a human rather than a predatory species." Alex looked at the screen, then back at the audience. "No, Professor, there's no error. This is correct. The apex predator of Earth is humanity." The murmur grew louder. Some delegates were now talking among themselves, clearly confused. Others looked like they thought Alex was making some kind of joke they didn't understand. Delegate Sharptooth, the massive being who had presented the Death Stalkers, spoke up. "Surely you jest, Dr. Reed. Humans are clearly prey animals. You have no natural weapons, no armor, no exceptional speed or strength." "You're absolutely right," Alex agreed, which seemed to confuse everyone even more. "Humans are physically weak compared to most other species. We have no claws, no fangs, no venom, no thick hide. We can't run very fast. We can't see very well in the dark. And we certainly can't breathe underwater or survive in space without protection." Ambassador Venomstrike raised what Alex thought might be a hand. "Then how can you claim they are apex predators? By definition, an apex predator must be the dominant hunting species in its environment." Alex smiled, and for the first time since arriving at the conference, she felt truly confident. "That's exactly what they are. Let me show you." She touched her control pad again, and new images appeared on the screen. These showed human population statistics presented in simple charts and graphs. "Humans number approximately 8 billion individuals on Earth," Alex began. "They occupy every continent except Antarctica, and they visit Antarctica regularly for research purposes. They live in deserts, forests, mountains, islands, and have even established permanent settlements underwater and in polar regions." The room had grown quieter, with delegates paying closer attention. "But population numbers don't make a species an apex predator," Representative Razorclaw pointed out. "My world has insect species with trillions of individuals." "You're right," Alex agreed. "But humans don't just live everywhere on Earth. They control everywhere on Earth. They have reshaped entire continents to suit their needs. They have redirected rivers, leveled mountains, and turned forests into farmland. They have created artificial environments where they can survive in places that would naturally kill them." She showed images of human cities, farmland, and infrastructure. The scale was impressive even to beings who had seen the great works of galactic civilization. "This is remarkable engineering," admitted one delegate. "But it still doesn't demonstrate predatory behavior." Alex's smile grew wider. "Let me show you their relationship with other species." The next series of images showed humans interacting with various animals. But these weren't the cute pictures of people petting cats that the aliens might have expected. "Humans have domesticated over 40 species of animals," Alex explained. "They keep these animals for food, labor, companionship, and entertainment. They control every aspect of these animals' lives: when they eat, when they reproduce, where they live, and when they die." She showed images of cattle farms, chicken coops, and sheep herds. The sheer scale of these operations was staggering. They raise billions of animals every year solely for the purpose of killing and eating them. Alex continued matter-of-factly. "They have turned other species into living factories for producing food." The mood in the room was starting to change. The casual amusement was fading, replaced by something that looked more like attention and perhaps a bit of concern. "But surely they only domesticate herbivorous species," suggested one delegate. "Prey animals that are naturally docile." Alex shook her head. "They have also domesticated natural predators. Dogs evolved from wolves, pack hunters that were among Earth's most successful predators. Humans took these wolves and turned them into pets. There are now over 1 billion dogs on Earth, and they exist entirely at human discretion." She showed images of various dog breeds, from tiny lapdogs to massive working animals. Humans bred them into hundreds of different varieties for different purposes. Some for hunting, some for protection, some purely for entertainment. They turned apex predators into willing servants. The room was now completely silent except for the soft humming of the station's life support systems. "Cats evolved from solitary hunters," Alex continued. "Humans domesticated them too. There are now over 600 million domestic cats on Earth. Humans keep predators as pets for their own amusement." Professor Quilnix leaned forward. "This is unusual, but domestication is not the same as predation. You're absolutely right, Alex said. Domestication is something much more sophisticated than predation. Predators kill their prey. Humans have learned to keep their prey alive and productive for extended periods. They have optimized other species for maximum utility. She paused, looking around the room at the increasingly uncomfortable faces. But that's just the beginning, she said softly. Let me tell you about the species they haven't domesticated. The next image showed a chart with a stark, simple title, Species Extinct Due to Human Activity. In the past 500 years, Alex said, humans have driven over 800 species to complete extinction. Not for food, not for territory, not for survival. Most of these extinctions were accidental side effects of human expansion. The number hung in the air like a physical weight. They eliminated entire species without even trying, Alex continued. Their expansion was so rapid and so complete that other life forms simply couldn't adapt fast enough to survive in the new environment humans created. She let that sink in for a moment before continuing. And the species that did survive? Humans now control their fate entirely. They decide which species live and which die. They have created laws protecting some animals and actively hunt others. They determine the population of every large animal species on Earth. The silence in the room was now absolute. Alex could see delegates glancing at each other with expressions she couldn't quite read, but they didn't look amused anymore. So when you ask what makes humans apex predators, Alex concluded, it's not their teeth or claws or venom. It's the fact that they have achieved something no other predator in Earth's history has accomplished. Complete dominance over all other life forms on their planet. She stood quietly at the podium, waiting for questions, but the room remained silent. Finally, Professor Quilnix cleared his throat. Dr. Reed, he said carefully, this is quite a different perspective on predation than we typically consider. You're suggesting that humans are apex predators not because of their individual hunting prowess, but because of their collective control over their planet's biosphere. That's exactly what I'm suggesting, Alex replied, and I haven't even gotten to the interesting parts yet. Alex looked out at the sea of alien faces, noting how the atmosphere in the room had shifted. The casual entertainment was gone, replaced by serious attention and what looked like growing concern. She decided to press forward with the evidence she had prepared. Let me explain what I mean by humans having no natural predators, she began, touching her control pad to bring up a new display. The screen showed a simple but striking image, an adult human standing next to various Earth animals, with clear size comparisons. Adult humans have no natural predators, Alex stated matter-of-factly. There is no animal on Earth that actively hunts healthy adult humans as a primary food source. Even our largest and most dangerous animals, grizzly bears, tigers, great white sharks, these creatures avoid humans when possible. Delegate Sharptooth leaned forward. Surely some of your predators pose a threat to humans? Occasionally, yes, Alex admitted. But these are usually accidents, cases of mistaken identity or situations where humans have invaded the animal's territory. No Earth predator has evolved specifically to hunt humans. In fact, most large predators have evolved to fear humans. She showed images of various dangerous animals, all clearly avoiding areas where humans were present. But this gets more interesting, Alex continued, when you consider how humans interact with these supposedly dangerous creatures. The next image made several delegates shift uncomfortably in their seats. It showed humans in various settings with apex predators. Marine biologists swimming with great white sharks, researchers walking among lions, handlers working with venomous snakes. Humans regularly interact with Earth's most dangerous predators for scientific study, entertainment, and even recreation. They have learned to predict and control the behavior of every major predatory species on their planet. Ambassador Venomstrike spoke up, her plant-like features rustling with what Alex had learned was agitation. But certainly these interactions require extensive protective equipment. Alex smiled. Sometimes, but often they don't. Humans have learned to read animal behavior so well that they can interact safely with creatures that could easily kill them. They understand these predators better than the predators understand themselves. She showed video footage of a human researcher calmly walking through a pride of lions. The lions barely acknowledge the human's presence, treating them like part of the landscape. This is Kevin Richardson, Alex explained. He's a human who has formed social bonds with multiple lion prides. These lions, which are apex predators in their own right, accept him as part of their social structure. He can sleep among them, play with their cubs, even take food from their kills. The room was so quiet Alex could hear the soft clicking sounds that seemed to be the alien equivalent of nervous breathing. But the relationship goes beyond coexistence, Alex continued. Let me show you something truly remarkable. The next image showed a massive facility with rows upon rows of cages and enclosures. This is a zoo, Alex explained. Humans have created thousands of these facilities worldwide where they keep apex predators in captivity for entertainment and education. She showed images from various zoos: tigers pacing in enclosures, sharks swimming in tanks, bears performing for crowds. Humans capture the most dangerous predators from around the world and keep them in small spaces for their own amusement. Children visit these places to stare at creatures that would eat them in the wild. The predators are fed on schedule, bred according to human preferences, and their behavior is modified to make them safe for human observation. Representative Razorclaw made a sound that might have been distress. They keep apex predators as entertainment. Entertainment, education, and conservation, Alex confirmed. There are currently more tigers in human captivity than exist in the wild. Humans have become so effective at controlling these predators that they're literally keeping the species alive artificially. She paused to let this information sink in before continuing. But zoos are just the beginning. Let me tell you about pets. The next series of images showed humans living in close proximity to various animals. But these weren't the domesticated cats and dogs she had mentioned earlier. Some humans choose to keep predators as personal companions, Alex explained. In some regions, humans live with wolves, large cats, venomous snakes, and other dangerous animals in their homes. The images showed people casually interacting with animals that could kill them without effort. A human playing with a fully grown tiger, another sleeping next to a large python, a third hand feeding a wolf. These humans form emotional bonds with these creatures. They treat them as family members. The predators, in turn, often become protective of their human companions. Professor Quilnick spoke carefully. Dr. Reed, are you suggesting that humans have somehow tamed these apex predators? Not tamed, Alex corrected. Dominated. There's a crucial difference. These animals maintain their predatory instincts, but they've learned that humans are not prey. They've learned that humans are something else, entirely, something that sits above them in the hierarchy. She changed the display to show hunting statistics. Now let me tell you about human hunting behavior, she said. Humans don't hunt for survival. They hunt for recreation. The statistics were staggering. Numbers showing how many animals were killed annually by human hunters. Not for food or protection, but for sport and entertainment. Every year, humans travel around the world specifically to hunt the most dangerous predators they can find. They seek out creatures that could kill them and they hunt them with weapons designed to ensure the human's victory. She showed images of hunting expeditions, humans posing with deceased lions, bears, and other large predators. But here's what makes this truly remarkable, Alex continued. Humans have become so efficient at hunting that they've had to create artificial limitations to make it challenging. The next slide showed hunting regulations and laws. Humans have established complex rules for hunting. They limit when hunting can occur, what weapons can be used, how many animals can be killed. They've made hunting deliberately difficult because their natural hunting ability is so overwhelming that unrestricted hunting would eliminate prey species entirely. She showed images of hunting preserves and managed wildlife areas. They've even created artificial environments where prey species are protected and managed specifically to provide hunting opportunities. They maintain populations of animals for the express purpose of hunting them later. The audience was now completely silent, and Alex could see expressions of what she was beginning to recognize as concern and possibly fear on many faces. Humans have also developed what they call catch and release hunting, she continued. They hunt predators, capture them, study them, mark them, and then release them unharmed. They do this purely to demonstrate their dominance over the prey species. Representative Razorclaw spoke in a voice that seemed smaller than before. They hunt apex predators. For entertainment? For entertainment, for sport, for research, and sometimes just to prove they can do it, Alex confirmed. There are humans who have made careers out of hunting the most dangerous animals on Earth. They write books about it, make videos, and teach other humans their techniques. She showed images of famous hunters and their achievements. But the most remarkable thing, Alex said, building to her next point, is how they hunt without any natural weapons. The next image showed human anatomy compared to other predators. No claws, no fangs, no armor, no venom. Humans are physically inferior to almost every predator they hunt, Alex explained. They're slower, weaker, and more fragile than their prey. So they created tools. What came next would completely redefine how the galaxy viewed humanity's place in the natural order. Alex touched her control pad, and the display changed to show a simple progression of images. A sharpened stick, a stone axe, a bow and arrow, a rifle, and finally what looked like a small device that could fit in someone's hand. Humans compensate for their physical limitations by creating tools, Alex explained. But not just any tools, they create tools specifically designed to kill. The progression continued, showing more advanced weapons. The aliens in the audience began shifting uncomfortably as they realized what they were looking at. This is a nuclear weapon, Alex said, indicating the small device. It's one of thousands that humans have built. A single one of these can eliminate all life across an area of several hundred square kilometers. Humans have built enough of these to destroy every living thing on Earth several times over. A sound like a collective gasp went through the audience. Several delegates began frantically tapping on their personal devices, apparently trying to verify this information. But that's just the beginning, Alex continued calmly. Let me tell you about persistence hunting. The next display showed a simple animation, a human running slowly but steadily after an animal that was much faster. Humans evolved as persistence hunters, Alex explained. They're not fast, but they can run for hours without stopping. In Earth's early history, humans would simply chase their prey until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. The animation showed the prey animal getting tired, slowing down, finally stopping while the human continued running. A human can run for 6 to 8 hours without stopping. Most prey animals can only sprint for minutes before they need to rest. So humans would just follow them. For hours, for days if necessary, they would chase their prey across hundreds of kilometers until the animal literally died of exhaustion. Ambassador Venom Strike made a sound like rustling leaves. They run their prey to death? They run their prey to death, Alex confirmed. And they still do this even though they no longer need to hunt for survival. Some humans do this recreationally. They call it ultramarathon running, and they compete to see who can run the longest distances. She showed images of human marathon runners, covering incredible distances on foot. The current human record for distance running is over 600 kilometers, without stopping. For recreation, Professor Quilnix leaned forward, his scales darkening with what Alex had learned was a sign of stress in his species. Dr. Reed, you're describing behavior that seems excessive for survival needs. That's exactly right, Alex agreed. Humans don't hunt because they need to anymore. They hunt because they want to. They've moved beyond survival into what they call sport. She changed the display to show human industrial operations. But individual hunting is nothing compared to industrial food production, Alex continued. Let me show you the scale of human farming operations. The images that appeared made several delegates recoil. Massive facilities housing thousands of animals. Automated systems for processing meat. Statistics showing billions of animals raised and slaughtered annually. Humans raise over 70 billion land animals every year for food, Alex stated. That's almost 10 animals for every human on the planet. They've industrialized the process of creating and killing other life forms. The numbers were staggering, and Alex could see the growing distress in her audience. They've also learned to modify other species to better suit their needs, she continued. Through selective breeding, they've created versions of animals that grow faster, produce more meat, and require less resources. They've essentially redesigned other life forms for optimal harvest efficiency. Representative Razorclaw spoke in a voice that was barely above a whisper. They modify other species? They modify other species, Alex confirmed. And recently they've learned to modify the genetic code itself. They can now create entirely new life forms designed for specific purposes. She showed images of genetically modified crops and laboratory-created organisms. But here's what makes this truly remarkable, Alex said, her voice taking on a tone that suggested she was building to something important. Humans have developed the ability to create artificial extinction events. The next image showed industrial pollution, Deforestation and climate change data. Humans can alter their planet's atmosphere, temperature, and chemical composition. They can make their world uninhabitable for specific species while maintaining their own survival. They've learned to engineer environmental changes that eliminate other life forms on a planetary scale. The room had grown so quiet that Alex could hear her own heartbeat. They've also developed something called biological warfare, she continued. They can create diseases designed to target specific species or even specific genetic markers. They can eliminate entire populations without using traditional weapons. Several delegates were now accessing their communication devices, apparently sending urgent messages. But perhaps most importantly, Alex said, humans have learned to extend their hunting range beyond their home planet. She showed images of space missions, satellites, and deep space exploration. Humans have begun expanding into space. They've already established a presence on their moon and have sent hunting parties to other planets in their solar system. They're currently developing the technology to extend their range to other star systems. Professor Quilnick stood up abruptly. Dr. Reed, are you saying that humans are planning to expand their hunting behavior to other worlds? Alex looked at him with genuine confusion. Of course. Why wouldn't they? They've already identified several planets in nearby systems that could support human life. They call it colonization. Of course, they're actively working toward it. Krung showed images of planned colony, ships, and terraforming technologies. They've also developed the theoretical framework for something they call terraforming, the process of modifying entire planets to make them suitable for human habitation. They can potentially reshape any world to meet their needs. The implications of this statement seemed to hit the audience like a physical blow. Several delegates stood up and began leaving the room, speaking rapidly into their communication devices. Dr. Reed, Professor Quilnick said carefully, when you say humans are the apex predator of Earth, you're not just talking about their relationship with other Earth species. No, Alex replied, still seeming confused by the reaction her presentation was generating. I'm talking about their relationship with life itself. Humans have transcended normal predator-prey relationships. They've become something that can control and modify the fundamental processes of biological existence. She paused, looking around at the increasingly empty room. They've become the ultimate apex predator because they're no longer limited by biology, environment, or even their home planet. They can adapt any environment to suit their needs, modify any life form to serve their purposes, and extend their influence across unlimited distances. The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of more delegates quietly leaving the room. But here's the really interesting part, Alex said, apparently oblivious to the distress she was causing. Most humans don't even realize any of this. Alex looked around the conference hall, noting with some concern that nearly half the delegates had left during her presentation. The remaining beings sat in stunned silence, many clutching their communication devices as if they were lifelines. Professor Quilnick had sat back down, but his yellow eyes were fixed on Alex with an intensity that made her slightly uncomfortable. Dr. Reed, he said slowly, you mentioned that humans don't realize the extent of their apex predator status. Could you elaborate on that? Alex brightened, apparently thinking this was finally a question she could answer enthusiastically. Oh, that's the best part. Humans genuinely believe they're weak, fragile creatures who need protection from nature. She touched her control pad, and new images appeared on the screen. These showed human children's books, movies, and stories. Human popular culture is filled with stories where animals are the heroes and humans are the ones who need rescuing, Alex explained. They tell their children stories about brave animals saving helpless humans from danger. The images showed cartoon animals protecting human characters from various threats. They have entire genres of entertainment based on the idea that humans are the weak ones in nature. Stories about people being hunted by sharks, attacked by bears, or threatened by wolves. They find these stories exciting because they've convinced themselves that animals are the dangerous ones. Representative Razorclaw, one of the few delegates who hadn't fled, spoke in a voice filled with disbelief. They think they're the prey? Exactly, Alex said, seeming pleased that someone understood. Humans see themselves as vulnerable creatures who need to be protected from the natural world. They build shelters not because they want to control the environment, but because they think the environment is trying to kill them. She showed images of human safety equipment and warning signs. They create elaborate safety protocols for interacting with any wild animal, no matter how small. They're terrified of creatures that pose virtually no threat to them. They treat a simple bee sting like a major medical emergency. Ambassador Venom Strike made a sound like wind through dead leaves, but they've eliminated hundreds of species. Accidentally, Alex exclaimed. That's what makes it so remarkable. They've caused mass extinctions without even trying. They build cities and roads because they want places to live and travel, not because they're trying to destroy habitat. The ecological devastation is just a side effect they barely notice. She showed images of environmental conservation efforts, and when they do notice, they feel terrible about it. Alex continued. Humans spend enormous amounts of time and resources trying to save endangered species. They create nature preserves, breeding programs, and environmental protection laws. They're desperately trying to undo the damage they've caused, often without really understanding how they caused it in the first place. Professor Quilnix leaned forward. They're trying to save their prey species? They're trying to save all species, Alex corrected. Humans have developed what they call conservation ethics. They believe it's their responsibility to protect other life forms from extinction. They feel guilty about their impact on other species and actively work to minimize it. She showed images of wildlife rehabilitation centers and environmental activists. There are humans who dedicate their entire lives to protecting animals from other humans. They form organizations specifically to prevent hunting, stop habitat destruction, and preserve biodiversity. They see themselves as guardians of nature, not conquerors of it. The remaining delegates exchanged glances that Alex couldn't interpret, but they looked deeply disturbed. But surely, said one delegate Alex hadn't heard speak before, surely they understand their technological capabilities. Alex shook her head. They understand the technology, but they don't see it as predatory behavior. When they develop nuclear weapons, they think they're protecting themselves from other humans. When they modify the genes of other species, they think they're solving agricultural problems. When they plan to colonize other planets, they think they're exploring and expanding, not hunting. She showed images of space exploration programs presented as adventures and scientific endeavors. Humans frame all of their apex predator behaviors in terms of survival, necessity, or discovery. They've never acknowledged that they're the ultimate hunters because they don't think like hunters. They think like prey animals that happen to be very good at defending themselves. The silence that followed was profound. Alex began to worry that she had somehow offended her audience. The funniest part, she continued, hoping to lighten the mood, is that humans are actually afraid of becoming apex predators. They write stories about the dangers of human expansion and environmental destruction. They worry about becoming too powerful and destroying everything they care about. She showed images from human science fiction, stories about dystopian futures and environmental collapse. They create entertainment that warns them about the dangers of their own success. They're genuinely terrified of their own capabilities and spend considerable effort trying to limit themselves. Professor Quilnix stood up slowly. Dr. Reed, I think we need to process what you've shared with us today. Perhaps we should adjourn this session. Alex looked confused. But I haven't even told you about their military capabilities yet, or their information warfare techniques, or their psychological manipulation strategies. The few remaining delegates began quietly gathering their things and heading for the exits. Did I say something wrong? Alex asked, genuinely perplexed. I thought you wanted to understand Earth's apex predator. Professor Quilnix approached the podium, his movements careful and deliberate. Dr. Reed, what you've described is not an apex predator in any sense that we understand the term. What you've described is... He paused, searching for words. Something far beyond that. Alex tilted her head. I don't understand. You've described a species that has achieved total dominance over their planet's biosphere, developed the ability to modify life at the genetic level, created weapons capable of destroying their entire world, and is now expanding into space to potentially repeat this process on other worlds. Professor Quilnix said slowly, and you're telling us they don't even realize what they are. Well, when you put it like that, it does sound a bit dramatic, Alex admitted. But humans are really quite gentle. Most of them just want to live peacefully and take care of their families. Professor Quilnix stared at her for a long moment, Dr. Reed, I think this conference may need to be postponed. We have some urgent communications to make to our respective governments. Alex began packing up her simple presentation materials. I'm sorry if my talk wasn't as exciting as the others. I know Earth's apex predator isn't as impressive as acid-spitting creatures or dimension-hopping hunters. Dr. Reed, Professor Quilnick said quietly, your presentation was by far the most terrifying thing any of us have ever heard. Alex looked genuinely surprised. Really? But I was just talking about humans. They're not scary at all. Most of them are afraid of spiders. As Alex left the conference hall, she pulled out her personal communication device to message her family back on Earth. She typed a quick note. Conference going well. Gave my presentation today. Bit worried it was too boring compared to everyone else's amazing predators. Looking forward to coming home. Behind her, Professor Quilnick was making emergency calls to every government in the galaxy, trying to figure out whether humanity represented the greatest opportunity or the greatest threat the galaxy had ever encountered. The debate about what constituted an apex predator was over. The debate about what to do about humanity had just begun, and somewhere on a small blue planet, 8 billion humans continued their daily lives, completely unaware that they had just been classified as the most terrifying force in the known universe, and that the universe was now very, very afraid of them.